You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives.
Welcome to the show, everyone. We are so happy to have you here with us, and also happy to have Judy Sabah here with us today. So a little bit about Judy. She began her coaching career in 1994, yet we know that the skills needed to be as committed and on purpose as she is began developing when she was just 6 years old. So after having an experience of not being heard at that age, she made a decision to become the best listener she could be. Using her skill of curiosity, she continues to learn about herself and other people, and she uses all of that information to create deeper understanding and empathy and create as much value as she possibly can in our world. A pioneer in the field of coaching, she began her education with Coach U in 1994. A member of the International Coaching Federation, she was awarded the Master Certified Coach designation in 1999, and that's the highest you can go, by the way. She is the co-founder and past president of the Colorado chapter of the National Speakers Association, and she is also certified in axiogenics and in instinctive drives. So in 1996, she founded the Colorado chapter of ICF and continues to be deeply involved in the chapter and within the coaching profession. And as she experiences continual learning and becomes more aware, she likes to say, that is when she is the most alive. So welcome to the show, Judy.
And I'm grateful to be with both of you guys. It's great to be together.
Yeah, go ahead, CJ. Take it away, man.
I was blessed to be introduced to you through Jordan. It has to be about 4 or 5 months ago now. And one of the things I remember with our first conversation was the calm nature and presence that you presented when you were talking to me. I felt like I was talking to someone I had known forever, which is perhaps part of your listening skills. So Jordan had alluded to that your journey began very young at a young age. Can you talk about a little bit of your personal growth journey and how that began for you, what that moment was that started to put you on this track?
Thank you so much, CJ. You know, as I've thought about this situation that happened when I was 6 years old, as painful as it has been, it was also a great gift to me. When I was 6 years old, my mom and I lived with my grandparents in Kansas. My parents had separated, and we had been there for about 3 or 4 months, and my grandmother got sick. And during the night of June 3rd, I heard a lot of noise and commotion downstairs, and so I got up and went to the bottom of the stairs and asked, what's happening? And what I was told was that I didn't need to know and I needed to go back to bed. That has never left my memory because it hurt so bad. I felt dismissed. My question wasn't answered. I still didn't know what had happened. I didn't know until the next morning that my grandmother had passed away. And as I think about it and have thought about it a lot, when I mentioned the gift, it was the gift of awareness. I had an interaction that was very painful and caused me to make a decision within the next few years, after I had tried numerous times to engage the people around me in listening to me and asking me questions, and they I know they were doing the best that they could, and they just didn't have the skills. And so I decided I would become the best listener that I could be. And that only occurred because of the painful situation. And I just, I think it's important to remember that there are many painful situations, and we certainly don't want to create those just to gain awareness. And when one of them happens, we do have the opportunity to gain awareness through that interaction or that situation. And that's what happened to me.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for trusting us and the audience with sharing more about that, Judy. And something you said there, I guess, kind of just brings up another question in the sense of you going through that experience and making the decision to gain awareness from it. And it seems like that's something, maybe it's not really a question, more so something that I guess call out in a good way. That seems like something that's also guided you based on that experience.
Yes, my intention has always been, for as long as I can remember, to never want anyone to experience that type of experience. And I think about it so often with people with little children, toddlers, and how if they're working a job and being a parent and being married and all of these things, they can get stressed and not respond in a way that might be the most loving response. And so I think about that often, about how just having the insight and the awareness about what our communication really can affect in those individuals' lives around us. I, I just had that experience last night, and it's so beautiful to just be in the presence of somebody and share with them, and and how that really bolsters their self-esteem, their everything that's going on with them when we can be present and listen and give our full attention to the person.
That's beautiful. There's a lot of insight there, and I have a question that kind of goes off that. Your practice of listening, that you've gained at a young age. How did you begin to cultivate that from where you were then to now? What were some practices that you began to pick up at such a young age to become the best listener that you could be to somebody, so that they could really feel heard?
I've thought about that a lot too, CJ. I remember the pain, and as I've experienced my coaching career and working with the two assessments that Jordan mentioned, I remember back to when I was about 3 years old, and my parents and I still lived together, and we had we had some pigs, and the mother pig uh, had some little baby piglets, and one of those piglets died, and my dad was just going to um, just put it in the ground. And I stopped him and said, "No, we're going to bury this pig." And so I got a shoebox and put some papers in it, and we put the little pig in there. And my dad dug a hole, and we gave that piglet a proper burial. So I say that because I had this nurturing part of me from the time that I was born. I didn't realize it until maybe within the last 20 years or so. But I I think about this in terms of how we can help other people to learn how to be better listeners, how to be present, how to ask questions. And we can do that by encouraging them to be involved in their own personal growth, to get to know themselves. I, I didn't get that opportunity until I was in my 30s. And I think about how things have changed today and how we have the opportunity to guide other people in their personal growth journey just by demonstrating our own personal growth and um, sharing that awareness with people. So I think that was more than answered your question, CJ. I don't even know if I got to your question, actually.
No, no, but I would think that from what I'm gathering, though, it seems that the closer one gets to knowing themselves better, the the thing that you stuck out that you said was it seems that you're cultivating a more loving response. The every response that you take because you have the awareness is bringing about a loving nature first inside and then outside. Is that correct?
Yes. And how bad it hurts when somebody does not demonstrate a loving nature.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like these little moments that have such a profound impact that we're not even really, thinking all the way through, or have the self-awareness, to your point, Judy, to recognize, like, hey, how I'm showing up right now impacts how other people are experiencing themselves, the world, our connection, etc. So it's beautiful that you bring that up, and I'm lucky enough to say I've been on the receiving end of your nurturing spirit plenty of times, and I'm so, so, so grateful. Um, so we've talked a little bit about it. I'm just wondering if there's maybe anything else you want to say about what's inspired you to start exploring, different practices in your life.
Well, we've talked a little bit about what happened when I was 6, and then the decisions that I began making as I experienced the pain of this not being heard. And I might mention also that in the work that I do with the assessments, we can identify in a person what their needs are. And there are people who have needs, and one of them could be listening, being heard. And just doing that for somebody can make all the difference in their world. And so I think, well, I don't know for sure if this person has a need to be heard, but why don't I just go ahead and do it anyway? Because it will only do good. And when I was growing up, um, you know, the way of being with those around me continued in the same manner. Every time I talk about what I wanted to do with my life, I was told that I couldn't do that. I was too young, or I was a girl, or, whatever. They had some reason. And in 1973, I happened to be privileged to be in a seminar that had they showed a film of Glenn W. Turner in the late 60s and early 70s. He was uh, doing a lot of powerful things in our country. And the film was called the Red Suit Film. And in that film, it was like he was speaking directly to me and spoke words that I had never heard before in my life. He said, I believe in you more than you believe in you. You can do and be and have anything you want. And I, just from the energy that I felt from him through that film, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I invested in his program, and that's what started me on my personal growth journey. I just, I had been feeling in the year or so before that it was time for something new and different in my life. And it showed up, and that turned the direction. If we'd say that I was going north at that time, as a result of what he said to me, I started going west, and I've never turned back.
That's beautiful. There was something in there that you said. You were talking about the way of being, and I know in a previous conversation that we had that you had spoken to something that I was considering probably is your way of being, which is that meditative mind state and everything that you approach. Could you expand a little bit about on what that meditative mind state is, or what that's like for our listeners?
Thank you, CJ. I I feel that the more we can be in the present and let go of the past. Most of us, if not all of us, have something from the past that is still remembered and is still painful. And maybe another time we can talk about ways that we can free ourselves of those kind of things. And yet, every day, if we can be in the present and just set that painful experience or whatever is coming up from the past on the back burner, being in a meditative way of being for me is being present, uh, noticing what's happening in my awareness, in my world, noticing the people that I'm around, um, responding to them in a loving way. It doesn't make any difference who they are. When I go through the grocery store line, or when I was at Best Buy earlier today, I still, because I'm interacting with a person, with a human being, and I don't know what's going on in his life, I want to be present and in my meditative way of being, listening and asking questions, and just being in that environment rather than thinking about what I'm going to do when I leave there or what I'm going to do tomorrow. Just being present puts me in a meditative way of being.
Love that.
Wow. I mean, I'm pulled in. I feel like we're talking to like a Zen master right now. And just super quickly, I just feel inspired to share that the very first time I met Judy, we met at a restaurant for lunch. And along the way to our table, which was maybe 30 steps or so, Judy gave like three people a hug. And it was just so beautiful to watch, and just such a, I think, if that doesn't explain just who Judy is as a person, and back up kind of what you're saying about you never know, right? Like what someone's going through, and that could have been the first hug they've had in a while, and how impactful that could have been for so many people. And that's just who you are on a daily basis, kind of living in this meditative state, and it's so beautiful. So I'm just wondering, what have you noticed about, being in this meditative state? How has that practice had an impact on your life?
Well, I think back to just last night when we had our National Speakers Association Colorado chapter holiday party, and I noticed how different I felt this morning as compared to when I went to the party last night. And last night I gave a lot of hugs, and I talked about how I support various people. There's one young woman who's just had a really, really tough time. And for a while, I was interacting with her, and then for years, well, she was going through a divorce, so that was taking up a lot of her time and energy. And last night, we had a reconnection, and I was able to tell her how much I admire her, the way that she's living, and just come from that meditative space of not wanting to compliment her, but just really express what I see in her. And it was so powerful, and it's so life-giving to me to share with others all of the good that I see that they're doing in their lives, in their way of being, in the world. And so it's made a huge difference. The giving, it just it feeds me. If we can say that I have a need to be heard, and I also have a need to give, because that feeds me, and to appreciate.
That's huge. Appreciation is big. And there's something every time you say something, I feel like I pick up a little piece that I you talk about what feeds you, and how does this practice like support you in evolving as a coach to treat each client uniquely and differently? Because so many of us in our days, it seems that we're like, nice to meet you, cool, nice to meet you, cool, and everything is painted in the same color, whereas it seems as if every interaction with you, every touch point that you're having throughout the day has its own unique taste. How do you continue to cultivate and not become someone who just paints everything in a shade of white, black, gray, whatever it is? How do you continue to cultivate that? Do you sit in the morning and find a place to sit down and start the day and meditate, or what is it that brings this essence to you?
I have not ever connected with a sit down and meditate kind of practice. It just I've tried various times, and it just works better for me in my life if I begin my day just thinking about what I want to get done in the day, and then interact with every person that I experience in the way that I know is true. In the work that Jordan and I do with the Axiogenics uh, value leadership program, that comes from the science of axiology. And the first point that I learned and carry with me all the time is that each of us, in fact, each living thing, each insect, each dog, each plant, whatever is living, is intrinsically valuable, totally irreplaceable, one of a kind. And so, as I interact with a new client, I know that I've had many, many clients. I don't even know how many clients I've had. And yet, this client that is in front of me today is her own unique and intrinsically valuable self. She's one of a kind. Even though I appreciate all the other friends and clients that I've had before, I've never been able to work with her. And so I take that into my into my soul, into my heart, and just experience her and the challenges and issues that she's talking about, that she wants to resolve. And you know, somebody who doesn't have that um, kind of feeling about their clients, might, as you described, they're all just clients, or however they describe them. You might just give it a try. Just focus on that one person and remember that you'll never meet another person like that. Might be somebody similar, but you'll never meet another CJ. You'll never meet another Jordan. In fact, this space that we're in today is an intrinsically valuable space. It's a one of a kind experience. Even though you mentioned, in previous conversations, we talked about this or something else and you remembered that, that's all good. And this space right now, this is a one of a kind experience that we are in.
Wow. And to your point, Judy, if we are consciously acknowledging all the one of a kind experiences and learning to appreciate them, I mean, how much more rich life becomes. And I mean, not like clients even set aside, it doesn't necessarily have to be a coaching client. You could be a leader of an organization. And if you start kind of bringing this perspective of everyone's unique in their own intrinsic way, and each experience is unique, I mean, how much more committed they're gonna feel to that organization, to bringing them their best selves to that role or whatnot, or even in a partnership with a loved one. I mean, if we're learning to appreciate these things the way that you're talking about, it seems like life changes significantly for everyone involved.
And I think about when you mention, if we're a leader of an organization, it doesn't take much to be a leader. We can be a leader in a family or in a group like this, but just when we appreciate, when we have that way of being, of appreciating the the space that we're in, the people that we're with, it brings out the best in that environment or in those people. It just naturally happens by us. There's an old saying, whatever you focus on expands, or whatever you water grows. And it's so true in our interactions with anybody, that we have the power to bring out the best in them by appreciating who they are and what they're bringing right now.
Amen. It would seem that you're always on the cusp of co-creation with this type of lifestyle. You're always getting to,
Right.
you choose. You made, like at 6, you had you had a choice, a decision. You said, "All right, I'm going to create the best outcome with the given circumstances I can." So I I'm picking that up, and I feel that deeply, because I talk to Jordan about this all the time. He brought me into the world of axiogenics and the coaching lifestyle, and it would seem that a coach is always trying to bring about something that you both know: what is going to create the greatest net value in any given situation with the circumstances at hand. That seems to be what you do with every interaction in your day. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for acknowledging that. I hadn't thought about saying it in that way, but yes, the central question, and bringing about the greatest. What decision can I make? What action can I take in this moment to create the greatest net value? I live that. as well.
Mm, mm. That is a big one I learned from Jordan as he was coaching me through some things, and that question now sits on my fridge. I see it every day. So, my question to you is this: uh, I look so much up to Jordan. I look up to you guys because it always feels like there's such a zen, peaceful state. But I know you're humans, and I know you go through your own trials and tribulations. So, being that you're a coach that coaches someone through challenges, how do you find when you come across challenges that you get yourself through those challenges? Because you have to talk to other people about it, but what does a coach do for themselves?
And that's a great question, CJ. And periodically, I run into those situations, and I recently experienced that kind of situation with my daughter-in-law, someone I would really choose to be close to, and yet she is not in that frame of mind, and I that is something I am putting on the back burner, waiting for my intuition to give me guidance on how to handle that, because she is married to my son, and I would like to spend time with him and her, and yet she is very resistant to having things be anything except the way that she wants them to be. And it is the resistance, I don't necessarily care if somebody agrees with me, as long as we can have a conversation about whatever it is that's going on, and not be resistant to any kind of conversation. That that's probably the thing that hurts me the most, and likely connects back to that experience when I was 6 years old, emotionally, and that's just coming to me. But when I say I'm putting it on the back burner and waiting for my intuition to give me guidance about how to handle that, I mean that. And I read something the other day on Facebook that really spoke to me, and it mentioned that our uh, our GPS is our intuition for our answers. If we will just know that our intuition is always with us and it's always guiding us, and the more that we acknowledge the guidance that we get from our intuition, the more we appreciate it, the more it'll be in our lives. And so I don't know what's the outcome of this. I just know that I've put it there on the back burner, and it'll stay there until I get the guidance to do whatever.
If I may piggyback off that, there's something that you said there when you're talking about that GPS. I've talked to Jordan about this. That was my girlfriend had shared it with me prior to this. It was having a calm compass, but being able to sit with something before deciding to make a decision that might be rash and not lead to a best outcome. So that GPS analogy is a sticking point for me. I love that.
And that's that's something I really need to work with, because I like to complete things, and so when I can't complete this interaction and get it resolved, um, that's it's a challenge for me. It's a growth opportunity for me.
Wow. So much wisdom being dropped right now from the one and only Judy. And what I heard in that, Judy, was when your meditative state is being challenged, your meditative state, staying in the meditative state is what you rely on to help you kind of navigate that. And to have the discipline in a soft way, even to sit back and let your intuition guide you when the time is right. I mean, that seems like another powerful way of just moving through the world. And I can only imagine how many relationships, whether they're personally or professionally, could be salvaged or improved or, um, yeah, kind of taken to new levels if we just took a second and responded with our intuition versus reacted emotionally. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to say what I was hearing there, Judy, and see if you had any thoughts on that too.
That was beautifully said, Jordan. Very beautifully said. Um, like there are a number of these kind of things. We're told when you get angry, count to 10 before you say anything, or these little things that can help us in those times. Because as human beings, we will be challenged from time to time. It will happen.
Are there any, like, when you're in the process, Jordan's talking about how do you, the remaining in the meditative state when the meditative state is being challenged? Are there, besides the count to tens, do you have sayings? Do you have what brings you to follow that track line for you personally? What is your method?
Well, I get a lot of newsletters and from people who are in the personal growth field, and if I can't bring myself out of the feelings, the painful feelings that happen with something, then I go either to a newsletter and read something. There's a newsletter by Esther Hicks, and um, regularly she talks about the most important thing that we can do is get ourselves into a state of feeling good. And so I remember that. And I might, if I don't remember it in the moment, I might go to her newsletter and read something that she's written, um, or I might, I grew up in a German family, so I I like polka music. I might turn on a polka music on YouTube, and just that shifts my energy. I might try different things to get to a place where I'm okay with the time that it could take for my intuition to do its work and and give me some ideas, because the ideas could happen in the middle of the night. I could have a dream or get an idea about something, and so I just search for what's going to get me into a state of feeling good. That's my number one thing. And when I'm feeling good, then to go about my day, and it shifts not only my physical energy but my mental energy too. Where I'm not focused on, why did she do that, and because the more I focus on that, the more of that I'll see.
Amen.
Yeah, I guess it's a perfect segue into kind of thinking about the bigger, like the global scale here, Judy. And so just curious, what are your thoughts on kind of this personal development work and going down that path and how that can contribute to creating a better world?
Well, there's um, Esther wrote about something similar to this just the other day about how we all want peace in the world. And I think about something that I've had for a long time, and that's making peace in my corner of the world. That's really all I can affect is my corner of the world, the people that I interact with or the situations that I'm in. And she went on to say, when we think about um, having peace in the world, and she says it more beautifully than I'm able to, but in this moment, we don't know several things. We don't know the spiritual path of other people in other parts of the world. We don't know them in our own little corner of the world. And for us to say we want peace in the world, there might be things that people in other parts of the world need to work out. And so I think about, the more that I can demonstrate my meditative way of living in the world and encourage people to be involved in their own personal growth, getting to know themselves, and in fact, put that into my lifestyle. My new book that I've wanted to get into the world for so many years is going to be available right shortly after the first of the year. And I intend to really, devote tremendous amounts of energy to that, to get the word out. The title is The Questions You're Not Asking Are Costing You Money, Relationships, and maybe even your life. Questions are so important. The questions that we ask ourselves, the questions that we ask others, and so that's where I want to put my energy, in getting that kind of conversation going in as many parts of the world that I can. That's how I can affect what happens in the world, by taking care of my corner of the world first and being committed to that, knowing that that is my purpose. That's the reason God put me here on this earth, and gave me the awareness, allowed me to be in situations where I was able to gain the awareness around how important this topic is.
Incredible. Yeah, Judy. One, I guess, just thing that you and I have talked about quite a few times is it's not necessarily the question you're asking. Something else that's a huge factor is how you're asking it too,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the energy behind it. If there's judgment riddled in your question, that's why you and I are kind of hit or miss on why questions, because even subconsciously, even if we're coming from a great place, uh, people hear why and often feel judged. So something you've taught me is really thinking about how we're asking questions, even to ourselves, right? Like, is it with that love and intrinsic value, or is it coming from a place of judgment, self judgment, or whatever else it may be? What are what advice do you have for people kind of introducing themselves to asking questions in a more effective and and helpful way.
Well, what comes to mind right now is really paying attention, as you mentioned, to our language and thinking about the value of certain words that have been traditionally in our language, in our communication, like the word should. When I hear the word should, I stop and ask the person who just said it, say it again and feel what it feels like in your body. Now ask that same question using the word could. Just simple things like noticing how the words feel in our body. A number of years ago, I was in an 8-day intensive with Brad Blanton on the topic of radical honesty. And he's the one that taught me to use the word I imagine. So instead of saying, well, I know, Joe, I know, Jordan, that, uh, you feel this way about that. I don't know anything. Even though I know you, I don't know anything about how you feel about that. Or I assume. I don't, again, but if I say, I imagine that you might feel this way about something, just changing that word and noticing how different it feels and how the response is, because so many words in our English language are just they're habits. They're repetitive habits that we've used for a long time, and being more conscious about our words and thinking through a question before asking it to see how it feels like it might land.
There's something a question there, Judy, I have for you. It seems like when you talk about asking a question and hearing you and Jordan go back and forth on this, something sprung to mind that I know you'll be familiar with, but it allows for genuine curiosity versus questions that are far more pointed. What is this? You already have an answer in your head, but seems like you carry with you a genuine curiosity. And Jordan's taught me that he's such a curious person by nature when he asks questions. And I know that that's derived with some of the coaching with you too. Can you just talk about some of that, what it means to be curious? Because I know it's a practice that Jordan is wonderful at, and I know he's gotten it from somewhere. So I would love to know where he, like, a little bit more about how you remain genuinely curious like that. Because you're right, it changes the tone of everything completely.
And Jordan had that. I imagine he was born with that curiosity. Uh, and I've had that all my life too. I just um, and I think that might have been one of the things that connected us.
Hmm.
But I really I want to know the truth. And the only way that I can discover the truth is by being curious. I want to know the truth of what a person is saying or what they're thinking. I want to know the truth in terms of my own health. I know that if I know the truth and I know the cause of whatever is ailing me, we're at least 50% of the way there, because we're dealing with real stuff, not uh, stuff that came from assumptions or came from the news or came from gossip. Uh, None of that. When we have a genuine curiosity and a desire, strong desire to know the truth. It just makes so much difference in our conversations and in our world. And when Jordan and I get on the phone together, we have absolutely no idea. We may have an agenda, well, what do you want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about this and this. But we have no idea where we're headed. At the end of our conversation, we go, wow, now that was interesting, or whatever.
Yeah, we enter another dimension and our curiosity guides us, and then we come back to reality.
You know, children, children are curious and spontaneous. And I think, if we just are curious and spontaneous, well, why don't we look at it this way? Or whatever the case may be, just all kinds of things emerge. I think about, when we know something, or we think we know something, that kind of slams the door. When we're curious and open to what what we might discover, it opens the door.
Mm.
Ah, Judy, we could go on another hour at least. This is so rich and beautiful, and I can't thank you enough for just being so generous in what you're sharing with us today and sharing with this audience. And just on that note, we'd love to hear your thoughts on what advice or guidance would you offer to our listeners who might be interested in pursuing this level of personal development?
There's so many directions we could go with this. Um, what comes to mind is, first, be willing to consider that being more curious, being more present, being more of a listener, being more generous in your listening, asking more questions. Consider what that could benefit in your relationships, in your life. Just willing to be more open. And then find a buddy, find a friend who might be interested in developing those skills, or maybe has them already, and hang out together, experience some conversations, look at opportunities, become more of a meditative life experiencer, and notice the opportunities that might show up. I guarantee you, if you will be, not do, but be these things, opportunities will show up. Whenever we slow down and take a deep breath and be in the moment, that's where I would imagine you could start. And then, if you want to explore, if you don't know um, any personal growth work that you might become involved in, there's a site. It's called tut.com, and it's filled with all kinds of personal growth courses that are very, very inexpensive. Um, Mike Dooley writes a newsletter that I've been getting for about 20 years, and it's called Notes from the Universe. And it's just a very short piece that you could read each morning, or just look it up on Google, ask a question. Where can I find personal growth information? And there'll be several billion responses that'll come back to you. But the first step is just being open to that experiencing rather than the painful experiencing that might have been happening in a person's life.
That's beautiful. As as we close out here, we've had almost this entire time we've been soaking in this knowledge from questions that we've asked you. Is there anything that to impart upon anybody listening, just from your depths, anything that's sitting in your soul at this moment that you would love listeners to hear or understand, take a thought on, be curious about?
Well, I don't know. This isn't exactly the answer to your question. I would say that no matter what your age, take the opportunity to get more in touch with who you are. I, you know, I was uh, I was 32 years old before I ever heard the words that would inspire me. And today, with technology and uh, all the information that's available, we have an opportunity to become more acquainted with ourselves and be more involved in our own growth than ever before in the history of our world. And that's what I would encourage. Learn about yourself, hang out with people who also are interested in their own growth, and stay in touch with us. Listen to future podcasts. I'm sure they're going to be at least as great as the one today, and let us know how we might be able to help you with anything that's been said here today.
Hmm. Thank you for that, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so well said. And just to highlight even the power of community. I mean, CJ, a couple other guys and I get together, once every couple of weeks to talk about this kind of stuff. So just really supporting what you're saying there, Judy, in the sense that uh, we're not meant to go through this life alone. And we all struggle with stuff, and we all enjoy things a bit more when we can share those successes with others. So I strongly second what you're saying there. So thank you for encouraging that.
Mm-hmm.
So could you let our listeners know where they can find more information about you, or if they'd like to reach out and potentially get in touch?
If you'll get on Google and put in Judy, Judy Sabah, Sabah. That's S as in Sam, A, B as in boy, A, H as in Harry. And just Google that. You'll find all kinds uh, of ways that we can be in touch through my website, through Facebook, through LinkedIn. You can read articles, however you'd like to know more about me. It's all there. Just ask Google. My husband Joe always called Google his granddaughter. He said I'd just go ask my granddaughter whatever I wanted to know, and she would respond.
That's awesome. Amazing, Judy. You want to bring us home, CJ?
Well, first, I would just like to thank Judy and anybody that was hearing what she said. Please do Google what and who Judy is about, because just in our brief times where we've gotten to meet and conversate, there's been so much that's been allowed to. The curiosity that you spark within me makes my days so much lighter. And again, you give that same joy and gift to my friend here, who I get to host this podcast with, and how lucky I am, Jordan. But your little micro bits of knowledge will expand this macro and make this world a better place. But again, please check out Judy Sabah in any way. Google her name, but we'll give you guys all the links. But again, thank you for coming on the Practicing People's podcast. We are so honored to have you here, and we will gladly have you back for next season.
And just know how much I love both of you. You're just very, very dear to my heart.
Received with all the kindness that it was sent and given back to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, so mutual, Judy. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Alrighty, bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing People's podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing People's community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing People's Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing People's podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.